When Richard asked me to talk, I said, well, what do you want me to say? I'm a visual artist, I'm a painter, and I spend all my time in the studio. I'm not involved in business, and I'm not involved in technology. And he said, well, what I really want to know about is the relationship between art and technology and communication and how you see that moving forward. So I think what I can contribute really is just a sideways look at what we mean about the term communication. Because I think before we start talking about technology, we have to really understand what we mean by communication and how that relates to the visual arts. Francis Ponge commented on a painting by George Braque. This is George Braque with one of his paintings, which I'm sure you're familiar with Braque, one of the leading painters of the 20th century. And he said, when I looked at the painting, it made a sign at me. It made me a sign. It called me. Now, Braque is a very intelligent painter and has been very influential throughout the 20th century and into more recent times. And I think in terms of art theory, what that has done has led to the dominance of semiotics in the way that art is taught. That the role of the artist and making a work of art is essentially about making something that signifies something, sends out a clear message, makes a sign. And we're very familiar with that in mainstream contemporary art. This is one of Jeff Koons's balloon dogs. The message is very clear, and so is the process. Here we have something which has been found in our world, a balloon dog expanded, turned into something very large, very precious, very shiny. Its message about consumerism is clear. And really what the artist has done has simplified the creative process to a very minimal activity. I take something, I expand it, I put it out there. And if you went to Goldsmith College in its heyday, you would have been told as an art student that your responsibility was to find the simplest way to make a sign. That is what contemporary art is about. There are other ways that you could make signs. This is Malcolm Morley's Racetrack. It's not a photograph, it's not a postcard, it's actually a painting, but really it's a painting of a postcard. The artist has taken a postcard, enlarged it in oil paint, and that's his political message. It's a comment on apartheid, but also there's something else going on. That red cross that flashes across the painting might also be suggesting that Morley is questioning whether art is as simple as making a sign, taking an object, reproducing it to get your message out there. Maybe the red cross has got something to do with negating a very simple process, which in this case might be described as photorealism, the reality of the photograph. So in thinking about George Braque, which happens to be the title of one of my paintings, and this is a painting, perhaps one has to take a step back. In fact, perhaps this isn't a realist painting in the way that Jeff Koons makes the balloon dog or Morley is making a realist painting of a postcard. Because although this appears to be like our world, being like our world is not the same as being our world. And that takes us all the way back to artists like John Constable, who said that art can remind us of our world by being different from it. So how is this painting different from a photograph, different from a straightforward transcription of our experience of the world? Well, for one thing, it's much more expansive. It presents on a two-dimensional surface something which can only be seen if we actually walk around the space, if we look around corners, if we stand above the figure, if we go out onto the street. You couldn't see all this from one spot. So it's a parallel reality. It's a reality which says a work of art is different from being our world. And if we think about George Braque, What Pons said about his paintings was that it made a sign. It called me. He didn't say a painting is a sign. He didn't simplify it down to the point that Jeff Koons would operate on. He actually said the painting had the ability to make a sign. It, the painting, is a subject, is a reality in its own way, and it has the ability to make signs. That suggests that a painting, a work of art, is a lot more than just a piece of communication. It actually has the ability to generate messages, generate meanings. This painting, which follows the last one, is called Les Souvenirs du Café Anglais. It's a good thing I wasn't doing this all in French, but I chose that title because in French that means memories of an English cafe. But we all know that in English the word souvenirs doesn't mean memories, it means the concrete artifacts that we collect to record our memories. So it's quite a different thing. And maybe that's really what a work of art like this is. Maybe it's a material, it's a concrete object that testifies to my experience, my memories, my recollections of being in the world. Perhaps the primary role of art then isn't to communicate a message to an audience. Perhaps the primary role of art is to find something solid, to find something that is permanent, that is architectural, that is plastic, that comes from our experience through the world. The flux of reality turns into something that is permanent, that has a stasis. Perhaps the role of art has very little to do with communication. And as you can see in this painting, although the work itself is very concrete, we can identify colours, spaces, the physical reality of the painting itself, what it's actually depicting becomes more enigmatic. That figures are shifting into other figures. The certainty of reality is being denied, and the certainty of meaning, therefore, becomes problematic. You will take from it what you want to take from it, but its actual meaning remains mysterious. Oh, let me go back. And another painting, I'd make a lot of paintings of the same subject in order to explore the possibilities of that subject and explore what that then can become through the process of painting in the studio. So one painting leads to another painting, leads to another painting. And this painting is called Table Dance as the Network Stops. And you can see, even at a glance, that this painting is really not like the first painting. It's not an occupiable space that you could recognize in our world. Here the inside has become outside, the outside is inside. We have both, we have many, we have layers. You could argue that to a certain extent that's to do with the depiction of time and the depiction of movement. That if you move through the world, you see it at different angles, and trying to make sense of that movement could result in a painting like this. And we can go back to the early stages of 20th century art with Cubism and Futurism to see examples of that. But the reality is that in the 21st century we have technologies that enable us to record the moving world. We have film, we have TV, video, all of which do a much better job of recording time than I can as a painter. So maybe something else is going on. Well, the one thing that really interests me as I got older and more experienced as a painter is to reject the rules of painting, to reject the rules that mean I can make space, can make the world in a realistic way. So I'm much more interested in anarchic ways of thinking, rejecting rules, replacing rules with found systems, grappling with things that shouldn't make sense and trying to make them work only in the context of the painting. So the autonomy of this painting is unique. It doesn't borrow its rules from anything outside of itself. And if we go up close, there's a detail from that painting where you can see, if you like, this could be a depiction of the figure standing and moving through different poses. But I would suggest that it's something else. And when Ponge was looking at the Braque and trying to fathom out what it was that Braque was on about, what he'd made, what the painting was dealing with, he didn't have an answer to the idea of that calling him, that sign. He couldn't explain its meaning. And I would suggest that although this might begin with something mundane, and it might begin with something that we can experience, whether that's the reality of the figure or the figure moving through space, what it finally becomes is unique. It sends out a message, but we're unable to really pin that message down. So we come to works of art to witness a kind of experience that we can't witness in the mundane world of ordinary communication. In other words, really to understand art, I think we have to turn on its head the idea of communication itself. Now let's take a much closer look at what I would see as the difference between visual communication and art. And clearly there are overlaps. And if we look at this classic Liechtenstein, we can see that Liechtenstein is deliberately using a common visual language of the day. We know that Liechtenstein borrowed from comic strips. And so the system for shading in a Liechtenstein is an enlarged version of the Ben-Day dot system. What Liechtenstein is rejecting the creativity of the artist for something which is mechanical. That's how it operates. Now that may seem a bit antiquated in the 21st century to talk about Ben-Day dots, but surely that is the forerunner to modern technologies that use pixels. The digital age is essentially an age which is built up of lots of little coloured dots. This is a video still from a video artist called Janet Biggs. In a way, knowing the name of the artist is not really the point, because the artist has given up her own identity in picking up a video camera. Because although the subject is original, the subject has been chosen by the artist, the very means to establish reality, the very means to find an autonomous reality has been sacrificed for a digital system. In other words, every video still or every photograph is essentially the same as every other photograph and every video still. The creativity lies in the selection, the choice of subject. It doesn't lie in the actual creation of the work of art itself. That's a system that the artist has adopted. It's been given. And I think that's one of the reasons why video art has become so popular now, because it does fall in line with post-Marxist teachings and theories about art being a product of society, principally concerned with communication. If we come up close to one of my paintings, you can see that we don't have lots of little coloured dots. What we have is little chunks of colour, little shapes of colour, little patches. Each patch, each shape is different. Each one is invented, and each one is invented by me. It's not borrowed from anywhere else. And the way each of those shapes relates to every other shape creates the possibility of a reality. And those shapes can be read in many different ways in order to create different kinds of realities. So the artist now takes back ownership of the creative process, not through subject matter, but through actually pushing around the material that can create reality itself. go back to the whole painting. At this point, it's difficult to discuss this in terms of a realist painting. It could just as easily be discussed as an abstract painting. My role as an artist is not to serve up a dollop of reality for you to digest and take away as a message. My role as an artist is to create something that's extraordinary, that's different, that's astonishing, that in its own concrete reality is unique. The meanings are so layered, so complex, so enigmatic, there's no clarity, there's no single message. In a more recent painting from this year, which I've titled Summer Arc, well, I called it Summer Arc because I like the idea of a painting being some kind of vessel in which I could put things in, something which can carry all sorts of ideas, all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of occurrences, experiences, and setting the thing adrift. Let it become itself. Like the cafe paintings that you saw earlier, it's a picture that's based on me being inside a room with my daughter painting and being outside in my garden with her friends drinking orange juice on the patio. It's a very mundane experience, and whatever is happening on the day that I decide to start a painting becomes the subject for the painting. But it's where that goes, it's where that ends up. What separates painting from illustration is an illustration is always concerned with communication. It's always concerned with conveying a message, returning us to the original idea. With painting, it's a journey where you start with something, but you have no fixed destination. The whole point of painting, the whole point of creating a work of art, is that you have nothing to say and you have no idea where it's going to go. It's complete when it's complete in its own terms. It's complete when it has the ability to call people, to make a sign, when it has that autonomy, the autonomy of a subject, just like the artist themselves. So what's the role of technology in all this? I think that's very difficult because paintings do utilise technology. We live in a modern world and there are all sorts of ways in which technology affects my life, my experience, the things that I use in the studio. So it's not a question of turning our back on the camera, on the video, on all those technologies that are open to us. But the only way art can really move forward, in conjunction with, let me take that back, in conjunction with technology, is to recognise the role of the individual. To be interested in technology does not mean to say that we have to accept the fixed algorithms that give us realities. Computer programs, cameras, they're all based on fixed languages which an artist uses. Those are the things I think we have to be very cautious of, because the artist has to find the means to create reality themselves. And that really means going back to very simple tools. Everything I do is rooted in drawing. The implements themselves don't really matter. The pencils, paper are of no importance. They just must have the plastic potential to be true to me and not just to reiterate a known system. So here I am in the studio, and for me, currently, I see no way that technology, in terms of cameras and the like, are relevant to me, but I keep an open mind on that. And I think my message in terms of the way arts must look forward is to understand what technologies can do and what they can't do. And the importance of painting is all about asserting the individual, asserting the unique ability that the individual has to create an autonomous reality. And that's it. Thanks very much.